What up, and welcome to Lions Nation Unite. I am Eazy, joined by my man Scott, and we are going to break down a couple draft prospects for you as we have been doing weekly. Last week took a little bit of break because there's lots of news going on for agency popping up, and we want to know what's going to change because obviously that would change your perception of the draft. Any big signings? I mean, no, there's no big signings for Detroit Lions. Did anything change your prospect, I guess, evaluation for the Detroit Lions, or who might fall to us?
I think them bringing back Barnes, Derek
Yeah.
Barnes is an indication that they are not going to be addressing linebacker early.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about a couple of linebackers who are going to go early, regardless. But I mean that's one of them. I think that the Lopez signing is really intriguing, taking some pressure off of DJ Reader, who I think people need to come to terms with some of the stuff with Reader. Like, he did not have an off season to get ready for the season. He was recovering from the torn quad.
Yeah.
And it's just different. So I think what you saw from Reader last year was not necessarily what you may see from him this coming season.
Okay.
But he can't play 100% snaps either. So you need some, you need some depth behind him. And when he comes out, it can't just be, like a chasm of all right, we don't have anybody, kind of thing. So, I mean, I think that was the reason for that kind of a signing. I think what they've done is smart. As far as, I mean, we can hit this later if you want, but the idea behind the Lions free agency for me is that you're returning Aiden Hutchinson, you're returning Aleem McNeil. You lost Carlton Davis, but to me, you upgraded in DJ Reed.
Wow.
And you're kind of, yeah. I mean, I think Reed's. I think he's a little better in coverage,
like on ball, or just straight up covering.
Just
guys?
as far as as a man coverage player, he's a pain in the ass. Now, I don't think he's got ball skills like some really elite defenders. So I don't think you're going to see a bunch of picks from him. But I think he plays tighter in coverage than Davis did. And that's not a knock on Davis. It's just, let's just say they're equivalent, right? But you're still returning, you're getting that player back. So as far as, I know that Minnesota's doing things and Chicago's doing things, but Minnesota's not returning. They're not getting Aiden Hutchinson back into their lineup. And they're not getting anybody like McNeil. And they're not getting anybody like DJ Reed, into their starting lineup. So everybody has to understand that the Lions are returning a bunch of elite players. And I mean, that's the free agency process at this point for them. And you could tie up a bunch of money going forward, but that might mean losing a player like Kirby Joseph in a year. It might mean not being able to pay Jamison Williams in a year. I don't think those are good things for what the Lions invested in those guys and what those guys are. So I know that's kind of a boring way to look at free agency, but that's the reality of it. I mean, Hutchinson needs to get paid. You can't go out and, I mean, I'd love for them to trade for Trey Hendrickson. I just don't know that I wanted them to do it at the deadline to lock in the back half of last year.
Yeah.
And next year, and not have to just give him what he was owed on his contract. It sounds like he wants significant money, and it sounds like the Bengals are just. I think the Bengals are asking for a first round pick for him, which is nuts, considering he needs a huge contract, right? So those are
that's the whole reason to trade them. Like it's
yeah. That's why. I mean, that's why at the deadline it made more sense to me because you get a year and a half from him, as opposed to giving him premium money. But I mean, that's where I am with it. I just think that the best way to view free agency is through that lens, that they're returning pieces that you can't find. As all the players I just mentioned are never going to be available in free agency in their prime. Lions are returning those guys. So I would. There's they were 15-2 last year. I think there's every reason to think that they should. 15-2 is a little unreasonable to see every year or even this coming season, but.
But shows you got a good team.
Yeah, just
that's 15-2 fighting through the injuries as well.
Yeah, so I just would the best way to describe it is if you don't lose Hutchinson and McNeil and Carlton Davis, you win the Super Bowl. You just
I'm
do.
with you.
So
Yeah, I saw somebody posted like the top 5 blowouts of the season, and it was us and the Jags, us and the Titans, us and the Cowboys, and the other team that showed up on there was the Eagles, and they
yep,
won the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
I just think on that scale alone, and again, that's us battling through injuries.
yep, yeah, yeah. I mean, they won important games with very much depth pieces on their D line and in their secondary, and you're returning all those guys. So I mean, we should all be super optimistic about where the Lions are and where they're going to go.
Yeah,
And
I'm with
I
you.
get it because there's splash moves happening out there, but teams that win free agency generally don't fare all that
Yeah.
well.
The perspective I like to Lions fans look at it that I've said yesterday was the Bears have been the back to back to back off-season champions the past
Yeah,
3 off seasons.
yeah,
Haven't licked a playoff, haven't licked a division title, like none of it, not even sniffed it.
yeah,
So I just like put it in perspective that way. The offseason doesn't really necessarily mean something. I think the big moves that like you could say like, okay, this is a swing trade. This is going to change everything. They happen in season, like when the Rams got Von Miller or like stuff like that. You already know what your team is, and then you're adding to it. The offseason, you don't know what anything is. You got to relax.
yeah. It's just it would be a very different thing. We'd be talking about the Lions very differently if they weren't if Hutchinson was not coming back. Then be like, well, who come on. If you didn't have McNeil returning, I mean, like if
Yeah.
they didn't sign DJ Reed, I would be telling you that I'm concerned about their secondary because they're so young and unproven. But
Yeah.
the idea that Reed is here to play corner one, right, which allows Arnold to slot in, which allows Rakestraw to continue to develop, which allows Amik to do Amik things, all that stuff. I think they're in a good place, and it's just, we'll see what happens throughout the process, and I think they'll continue to add some pieces. It's not. I think they are talking to Von Miller. You mentioned him. That'd be an interesting signing. I would like the idea of Davenport and Von Miller is intriguing from a sense of, those guys to play one position is interesting, but I still think you need to throw an edge player in the draft to
Yeah.
just to be able to hold up because Davenport hasn't been able to stay healthy and play, and Von Miller's older, and you just never know.
Yeah.
But if you were to do something like add Miller and draft an edge within the first 2 rounds, kind of thing, with Davenport, I think that's good. Returning Hutchinson, opposite Hutchinson, I think that makes some sense. The Levi addition is good because that helps you if McNeil's if he's on PUP to start the season, at least you have something there. So, I
And I
think they're in a
liked
good
him a
place.
lot in camp last year. Like I don't know if it was because obviously he's playing between Davenport, or I think was a beast, and Hutch was obviously a beast. But like in camp, Levi was tearing it up, man. I
Yeah.
just obviously didn't translate to the season. But no, he had a bad season though. He had his first
Yeah.
16-game season, which I was proud of. But I
Yeah, and
think there's some upside
coming
there,
back from the back thing is good for him.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
You made a phenomenal point about Reader as well. I didn't take in the fact that he didn't really have a normal offseason. He was rehabbing the entire time, rushing back to contend for a title with us. So shout out to him for doing that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think he still looked good in the pass rush, which wasn't on the docket. I didn't expect that at all from him.
Yeah, he can do those things, and Lopez can do those things. So, the interesting thing is not that you do this all the time, but if you deployed both of those guys at times and went real heavy, it'd be tough to run on them. Think big edge and Lopez inside and Reader inside with Hutchinson outside, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to put you in 3rd and long kind of situations, and then we're going to bring our pass rushers.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. They have options. They have, losing Zeitler is a bummer, but it's easier to replace that position than it is to get production from interior D line. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're better suited to lose Zeitler than they are if they were to have lost Onzarike. because then it feels like you need to press in the draft for an interior player and you need to get production immediately from them. Where at pick 28, like, I don't know who, I mean, it's tough to even project a position at this point.
It's yeah.
It's good.
And my stuff got jumbled up. I texted you immediately when it happened, when Evan Ingram signed to the Broncos, because my mock draft I did last night, Colston fell. And I was like, well, and I was trying to do a predictive mock draft too. Like, what would Brad do? Not what I would do. What would Brad do? I was like, who's a BPA guy? Colston got kind of interesting there at 28 for me. I ended up taking him. I'll say it.
I mean, as a big slot.
Right? You don't have Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
Come out there at the Y, or I mean, whatever. It's your red zone target. All right, I have one more curveball then, since I'm talking about my mock draft from last night, if you don't mind, because I did another shameful thing in terms of like team need. Jaden Ivey was looking at me dead in the eyes.
Yeah,
but then Darian Porter was there, and I just look at this kid, like 6'3". He ran the 4.3. He's got all the measurables. How is this guy not a first round talent? I know he's like 24 or whatever, but like, where's the fall off with this guy? Was I crazy for taking him there?
Where did you take him? At what
second round? 60.
I don't think so, but it's taken him a long time to produce for 1 year. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's got to develop. There's things that he needs to continue working on. But as an older player, for it to really only pan out for 1 year, there's a little bit of caution in and around that. But
yeah,
he's big.
Wasn't he playing receiver first?
What's that?
Wasn't he playing receiver first, and then that 1 year corner? I could be wrong. I have no clue.
Maybe it's just he's been around. He's been there for a while, and I do think he was a convert from the offensive side of the ball. But I mean, the whole planet theory concept of there's only so many people, that tall, that big, running that fast, right? So, I mean, if they wanted to draft him, and because it's a bit of a project, right? I don't think you're going to get much out of him in year one, and then you got to bank on that development happening. Problem is he's already older, right? So there's some things that are stacked up against him that we'll see.
Yeah.
But I mean, you find a big corner who can move. 60 seems pretty reasonable for that.
That's okay. That's what I figured. I just felt dirty and shameful because I knew edge was a need. But I was trying to go BPA. I'm like, I can't really, BPA wise, I can't really pass up on this. Like, that's not really.
Yeah.
I don't know. But all right. Finally to the prospects that we plan on talking about. I apologize about that, Scott. And you could hurry up through the linebackers if you want to, because as you said, we did re-sign Derek Barnes. Maybe it's not as much of a need, or even guys that are going to fall to us, but they're hot when it comes to clipping up stuff. So I got to get these names in. Jihad Campbell, my guy Spinney is obsessed with him. The linebacker out of Alabama. I think he's a little bit of a tweener. I know he was recruited as an edge, ended up playing linebacker, but I think he's a little too small to play edge. I thought he'd be a perfect fit at the Sam if you wanted to force it and have him learn it, because he's only 21, right?
Yeah, he is. I think that's what he is a Sam linebacker prospect. He's 6'3" and 235, so he's light, but he'll be gone before the Lions pick. So it's really, they'd be trading up in this scenario, and after bringing back Barnes, I just can't see them doing that. But regardless, so as far as like pass rush abilities, he's obviously as smooth and as athletic as you're going to find, right? He can turn the corner. He's super fast and explosive and all that stuff. But I do think there are times when he struggles to finish because he's so fast that he's a little out of control when he gets to the quarterback. But it doesn't change the fact that he's pressuring and causing quarterbacks to move, that kind of stuff. So the pressure is there. It's easy to see. Again, he's got all the movement tools that you could possibly want. He's not a player who's all that effective using his hands as far as pass rushing goes, but he doesn't need to because he's really bendy. and he's quick and fast and all that stuff. Again, we're talking about blitzing, walking him up sometimes on the edge, and then you can see him, pull out like his ghost move is sort of like, yeah, that's just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you're blocking that kind of stuff. And the only other thing that stands out from that scenario is you would never play him traditionally as an edge guy because he's just too small. So he would be blitzing and coming from different places and all that stuff. But one of the things that stands out is his instincts. Is there's a lot of batted passes with him. So even when he can't get home, he's finding a way to impact plays because he gets his hands up and he'll bat balls down, right? So it's a good thing. In coverage, he can do things in coverage. You can drop him off the line of scrimmage. He's pretty. He looks and moves like a corner at times, getting out of his back pedal. So he's got some twitch as far as the way he gets out of his pedal and kind of comes forward. He's good in coverage. I don't think he's great, but it's tough to find linebackers who are in college. It just they kind of don't exist. He's one of them who does. So I think he could be the next linebacker that people are talking about because he can impact. He can give you pass rush. He can play in coverage. And then as far as his run defense goes, he's a true sideline to sideline guy. And it's easy to see it. I mean, it's really not tough to see him run and chase. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of does stand out is that he will, instead of taking on blockers, he'll run around them, but he can do it and still maintain his gap integrity because he's slippery enough. Like he is so slippery. So one of the things that you want to watch for is you want to watch for players who will get out of their gap, because if they don't want to take on blocks and then they're out of their gap, that creates big runs, or that creates stress for a defense. He doesn't necessarily do that, even though he's not really wanting to take on blockers because he's so slippery. He maintains his gap integrity anyway, and then he's a good tackler, right? So I think he's that guy who can do it all in three phases. He's just smaller than I think what some teams would like, but I do think that there will be a team like Tampa would take him. I think Tampa would look at him and say, "There's just no way we can't take this guy."
Yeah.
Or he may be gone before that. So
they love doing that 5-man front stuff too. He'd be a pain in the ass to deal with.
Yeah, he would add to that lateral quickness and playmaking ability where it's like, all right, this play he's blitzing and now he's dropping into coverage and he's pretty good in coverage. And
the coverage stuff really surprised me because everything I read leading into the tape was that he was an edge / linebacker guy. So I thought he was more of like a, just getting after the quarterback. And no, the coverage stuff, he is from being that edge translate to linebacker. His coverage skills are actually insane.
He's good. He's good. So I think he's he's a complete guy. Those guys are rare. So he's going to go early. It's just how it is.
I agree. Jaylen Walker was another guy on this list. Probably another guy that's going to go early, but
he'll go early. He's going to go real early. But this is not a player who you want dropping off the ball. This isn't a guy who I think shows you really good stuff in coverage. But here we go. The first thing I'll say about him is that it sounds like
would be music.
His character is just off the charts good. So there's that. Like he is, if anybody's getting that group together down at Georgia, it's him. Whether that's in the weight room or getting them on the right track or getting them, figured out, all that stuff. It sounds like it's him. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. He's 6'1" and 243. So I think that with the leverage that he has, he can hang as an edge player much better than a player like Jihad Campbell, right?
Okay.
Campbell doesn't have heaviness in his hands, and he doesn't have there's not a lot. It's just he's speed, quickness, and blitzing. But Walker's got some pop in his hands where he'll set the edge for you against the run, but he'll also jolt a tackle back with his leverage in his hands when he's rushing the passer. one of the nice things about the way he plays is it seems like he's really well coached. Is that even when he's blocked, the majority of the time he's where he needs to be, but he's good at keeping his outside arm free. So he's not being totally engulfed at the college level. You can see him, let's say his left shoulder, whatever shoulder is inside, that's the one that he's sort of attacking with, and the outside hand is free to make plays, right? That's impressive to see that kind of stuff. There are times when he doesn't engage well, or he goes against better players, where he is going to get engulfed against the run. He just is. So teams are going to have to be comfortable with some of that stuff. I think that watching him, there's now Georgia moves their guys around a lot. So it's, I don't want to pin this all on him, but there are times when you can see him not diagnose which gap he needs to be in based on what's happening in front of him. He'll run around his responsibility and not be able to get back into his responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's, you have to work on, and I don't know it enough to know, like, I'm not saying he's playing hero ball, but if you just tell him, hey, you don't have to make this play, you just have to win your gap or be in your gap. I think he can do all those things. It's just there are times when he won't do that. Obviously it's a guy who uses his natural leverage because he's short. We've talked about that a lot with other edge guys. He uses that really well when he extends his arms and he can move, all that stuff. He can turn the corner. He can bend pretty sharp. When I watch him play, I think he looks like a player who is very polished coming forward and attacking as a pass rusher, but he does not look like that at all going away from the ball, off the ball. So I just wouldn't ask him to do it. And then I already talked about the character. So that's kind of it with him, is that I think he's more of an edge first player and not necessarily a guy you're going to drop into coverage. If you do, I don't think you should be asking him to play in coverage. Maybe it's just, hey, roll out to the flats and, just kind of keep things in front of you and then make plays on the ball kind of stuff. But he's not necessarily a guy who you're going to drop and have cover, because that's not his skill set. His skill set is come forward. He's got heaviness in his hands. He's got enough twitch to get the corner and go get the quarterback.
He's like a 3-4 linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what he looks like to me, as more of a 3-4 stand-up outside linebacker who you want coming forward and attacking.
So probably magically fall to the Eagles at 32 somehow, and then they'll take him and continue.
He's going to be long gone. I would say that.
No, I'm messing around. They just always get Georgia Bulldogs, man.
I know they do. They love those guys, but I think Walker's gone before, pick 12 to 15 at least. And if I could, Carolina takes him, cool. That makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I've been having him go, is Carolina. Now, we're real quick, by the way, guys, if you're enjoying this draft content, if you enjoy Detroit Lions content, if you enjoy or more and Lions Nation Night, please make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe. I am failing my job because I was supposed to say it in the beginning, so please make up for me failing to say that in the beginning and do it now. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff like that. One of my favorite things about working in this market is that we get to enjoy and be a part of, at least coverage-wise, maybe one of the greatest rivalries in college football, maybe the greatest rivalry in college football, and that's Michigan versus Ohio State. And when it comes to draft time, just because a certain guy may have gone to that school, a lot of these Michigan Lions fans just knock him down the charts. But I like Donovan Jackson a lot, actually. I wouldn't be mad if he was a pick at 28. I want to move towards the interior offensive line with him. What are your takeaways on Donovan Jackson?
So he's in the scenario at 28 where all the edges that you like are gone. There's no safety available because I think safety is suddenly a little bit of a quiet need.
Ooh, what about the kid from South Carolina?
No,
he'll
be gone. And I mean, if you take him at 28, fine, cool. He's not a great tackler. There is a lot of fake tough guy to his game.
Okay.
I hope for my sake, he doesn't hear me say that. Because obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There are times when he'll hit people, but he'll hit when he's got a serious advantage there. Like as a player's going to the ground,
It's not consistent.
It's not consistent, but there's also not a lot of desire to take on stuff. You know, he'll smoke a tight end as he's going to the ground, and it's like an easy hit, and then he'll stand over top of him. Like, come on, you know. But he misses tackles all that. He's not a good tackler. He's more of a wrap up guy than a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then in coverage, it seems to me like he's crazy athletic, so he makes up for some of this stuff. But there's a lot of examples where you'll see him turn the wrong way. There's a play, and ESPN. This is going to be the first play they show on draft night.
How do you say his last name, real quick?
Emmanwori.
Nick Emmanwori. That's what we're talking about, by the way. If you guys, I said South Carolina kid.
Yeah. So he's in coverage. They don't really show it because it's using TV copy, but he undercuts a throw. It's against Oklahoma, and he dives and he makes a pick, and it looks like, wow, that's an incredible play. But the context around the play is that the receiver runs just a garbage route, where instead of running it flat down like the 45-yard line, he lets it drift up to, say, the 50, right? And then the Oklahoma quarterback underthrows. He leaves it short, and it's an underthrown pass where he needs to put it on the sideline. And if the receiver runs a sharp route and the quarterback throws a good pass, there's no way that Emmanwori can get to this pass. But he undercuts it because he is crazy athletic, and he makes this diving pick. And I promise you, it's going to be the first play they show, and everybody's going to say, oh, my God, what a play. But
that reminds me of that Kyle Hamilton play everybody fell in love with the quarterbacks just rolling out, making a shit decision. But Kyle Hamilton's just Kyle Hamilton and makes it into highlight.
Yeah. But in that play, at the point where the receiver breaks that and snaps it off and runs like the crosser, Emmanwori turns the wrong way. So he turns towards the boundary when he's got help on the boundary, and he's also playing inside leverage. So there's no way the receiver should have been able to snap that route off and run a crosser like that unless he does get himself way out of position, but he did. So that's the context behind some of these things, like even stuff that we're going to see as part of a highlight package. They're not always like what you would consider. I mean, yeah, it's a highlight play. He makes a diving pick, but the phone. Jeez. Sorry. So
you're good. Boom.
So that's part of the highlight packages that they show, that sometimes you need context, because sometimes plays happen where it looks really good for a player, but if you don't see the whole thing, you can't see the mistakes that are made to make that play happen. Now, give him credit for recovering and doing all those things, but it's tough to see. I mean, if a receiver runs a sloppy route like that in the NFL, he's, unless he's a superstar, he's not going to see a lot of reps. And you're not going to see quarterbacks with the inability to get the ball, from the hash to the far boundary kind of stuff at the NFL level. So
sure, Sanders.
If it's a good route and it's a good throw, Emmanwori can't make that play. But he did, so it's going to be something that we all see, and you're going to giggle when you see it now, because you're going to think, wow, he does come from a long way, but it's because he forced himself to get out of position by turning the wrong way. So that's the context around that play. I don't know why I got into that play so much, but
you're fine. Hey, if you're passionate about it, it's going to do well. That's all that matters.
So there are moments where his inability to process stuff that's happening, or like specifically even on that play, that like he's got a corner playing to let's say the boundaries, let's say the boundary side, which is to the top of the screen. So if he allows the receiver to just allow up or release up there, he's got help. So you're already playing inside leverage. Why are you jumping outside and turning outside when you have help there and you don't have help in the middle of the field? So this is the problem with him, is I think he's going to struggle the deeper you get him away from the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at a guy who at this point doesn't love to tackle and isn't physical as a tackler. Good luck with that, right? So
Yeah.
I could get it if it's at 28 and they feel like they can convert him into a very sound tackler in the box, and that guy can run and just let him run and chase stuff. I get all that stuff because he's one of the rare athletes in the entire class. It's just there are concerns around, to me, there are concerns around his tackling and whether or not he can even do those things or wants to do those things. But you can't argue with a player who's as big as he is, as fast as he is, as explosive as he is. I'm not saying I'm nitpicking, but I am a little bit.
That's fine.
You got to take somebody at 28. You just do.
Yeah. And honestly, Detroit Lions will never take anyone that's not a willing tackler. That's just one common trait I've noticed between every single defender they grab. Cornerback, no matter who it is, size, they got to be a willing tackler. Free agency pickups. Me hearing that from you, I know enough that he's not going to be a Detroit Lion. I saw the athletic traits in the combine and it piqued my interest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think Kirby Joseph is a real good tackler, right? Mm-hmm. But he gives you enough coverage, in the back end deep where I think, I mean, he is a very smart player. He understands what teams are trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't think you can deploy Emmanwori like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you played him deep and let him roam, I think he's going to run himself out of plays and get himself into trouble. I know I'm going to get crushed for everything I just said about Emmanwori because everybody thinks he's this great player, but whatever, it's cool.
No, I've
Donovan Jackson.
Yes, Donovan Jackson.
Donovan Jackson is one of the players that if he is there at 28 that I would be doing a bit of a happy dance over if this is who they settled on. Over almost any of the other guards in this class. To me, he looks like a player who is going to play at a high level for a long time as a guard. I know he gave you the look at tackle last year because Josh Simmons got hurt.
Yeah.
So he was forced to play tackle, but I would not want him playing tackle at the NFL level. I think his ability to play guard and do it all is super impressive, but everything I'm going to say makes me think that he's not going to be there at 28 because he is so highly polished already with upside, right? He plays with a really good base. He's got really good feet. Like his footwork is smooth. It's polished. He's powered up. He can latch on and he stays on. He'll move players, in the ground game. You can see the athleticism with him getting out. You can see him pull, all that stuff. So, with what the Lions have sort of converted to as far as an offense, they run some power stuff and then they run some outside zone stuff. And it's, I'm not going to say it's 50-50, but they run some inside zone stuff still. But last year they ran a lot of outside zone specifically for Gibbs. And you hit home runs like that. And then you run power stuff and Gibbs can do that, but Montgomery can do both of those things too. So it is very easy to see how a player like Donovan Jackson could play as a guard for them. And as an athlete, hold up really well as an outside zone player, but also give you the ability to run power concepts too. And it's tough to find that combination. Again, plenty of athletes. He's got all that stuff. He's got good anchor in the running game, so you can see him even when he may be like initially stoned at the line of scrimmage. He'll sort of drop his hips and kind of roll his hips and then run his feet short, choppy power steps, and he can do those things. I think he's got heavy hands. He's got some pop in his hands. He's a good down blocker. To me, he is one of the better players in the class with some position versatility. I'd be surprised if he was there at 28, but at 28, I think he's a player that you plug and play, and he plays on day one for you. And if you look at just in a vacuum, you look at him and Mahogany as your guards, and you look at the tackles they have with Ragnow, I think you're looking like, okay, the Lions offense is absolutely predicated on the strength of their O-line.
Yeah.
And you just made your O-line significantly better at pick 28. I just don't think he's going to necessarily be there because of how ready he is and how complete he is as a player.
Yeah.
Love his game. I think he's a phenomenal football player.
Yeah, I did a 1 to 32. I want to say it was like last week or a couple weeks ago, and I drafted so many offensive linemen. It was like so many. But I also like Kelvin Banks. I also like this next guy we're talking about, Tyler Booker. I had like a lot of those guys going a little bit earlier than they should, but he was around there for me. But we'll see. That'd be one where I'm excited too. And I'm sure Jahmyr Gibbs, once you put on the tape or found out about him, would be happy too. And our run scheme is so multifaceted, and he gets to do everything as well because he's uber athletic and huge. Yeah.
Yeah, he's that's the thing is that if you're a team that does a bunch of different stuff, like I feel like the Lions kind of play this game with defenses. Like when defenses go a little bit small, all right, let's run power concepts at them. When they go, when they bring bigger bodies, all right, let's run outside zone.
Yeah.
Right? And they can do both running backs can do those things, and you can just mess with defenses that way. So, Donovan Jackson is the one player in this class.
He's such an awesome pick.
He would now. I mean, if Banks falls to 28, yeah, as a guard, sure. If those guys aren't falling, right? So
yeah, they're not going. Yeah, they're going.
Tyler Booker is an interesting player. I don't think he fits the way Jackson does from a standpoint of athleticism.
Okay,
he's significantly more phone booth power kind of guard, maybe a throwback player when everything was power concepts.
Yeah,
he would have been fine.
Fun to watch.
I don't know that he's got the athleticism that you need to be running outside zone concepts. So I think he would be more limited. And a team that runs a ton of power I think they're going to be more intrigued by his game. So when I look at him, and he just seems like a kind of a real heavy phone booth player with obviously very impressive power, like anchor power and the ability to drop his hips and to play with leverage and power and all that stuff. His problems are at times he doesn't always bring his feet with him. So when you're real heavy and you get overextended, you get over your toes a little bit, and let's say you miss or you fall off. Let's say somebody, a defensive tackle sort of stalemates with him. He tends to fall off sometimes because he doesn't bring his feet. And that's something I think, that's something that needs to be corrected in his game. But if you can get that resolved, I think you have a good player in short space where, yeah, he's going to move people. And, when it comes to sealing off and down blocking and all those things, he can do all that stuff at a very high level. It's just the idea of looking at him get into space and sort of out of control makes me wonder how much he actually fits in a system where you want to run laterally. Obviously, very heavy hands. And if he gets his hands fit upright and he does bring his feet, it's over. Like he's so powerful and he's got good arm length and all that stuff that it's really hard for defenders to get off him. So that's what you hope he brings into the future, is that he will move his feet and move people. When he brings his feet, he's good. He's solid, right? He's a very smart football player. You can see him pass off stunts. Now, if you want to see the entire Alabama offensive line struggle to do this, watch the Michigan game.
The playoff one.
The playoff game, yes, and then even this year, like Michigan runs so many stunts with Graham and Grant and their edge guys that they play so many games that it's really hard for offensive lines to figure out just what the hell they're doing.
Already not fair.
Yeah. But if watch the playoff game and it's just like Alabama just they're confused. Right. So, and I think that in the first half, they tried to play big boy football against Michigan and really struggled to move the ball. And then in the second half, they went to some more passing, some more RPOs, stuff where they knew they had to change things, that they just couldn't go power concepts and that kind of thing because they just weren't able to hold up because there was always somebody running free.
Yeah.
So, but with him, generally speaking, he's pretty good at picking up all the games and the stunts. He passes players off and picks up players really well. The overarching theme around his game, though, is he a fit in the Lions system? And I don't know that he is, simply because of how much outside zone they have migrated to. I don't know that he can play, that he's really good situationally as an outside zone run blocker. That's where my hang up is with his game.
I agree. The athleticism there. I think you're on the money. Like if you're running power, if he gets his hands on a guy, he's gonna mow him over. But the athleticism for like the zone stuff, that I think Jahmyr Gibbs is great in. It's just not ideal. Now, obviously, again, when we do these, we do them within the context of who is likely to be around there at 28. I know we did Jaylen Walker. That was a selfish reason of mine. I don't want to talk about him. But the other guy, obviously, Campbell, Mimbu, Banks, off the board by the time we get to 28.
Yeah.
Gray Zabel, another guy that's kind of floating around. Probably my number 2 for the guy that's going to be there between he and Donovan Jackson. What's your take on him?
Gray Zabel. Okay. He's played all over that offensive line in the past several years in an NFL-style offense. He has. So there is position versatility with him that you don't necessarily have with other players. My guess is there are going to be a bunch of teams that have him snapping at times because of a potential move to center. And there's some intrigue in and around him specifically because Ragnall's not going to be here forever. And if you have an in-house player who's a candidate to go play center for you, you don't have to then address that in the future if that player is already here, right?
Do we have any of those guys like that right now? Or you'd say no?
I would say that your backup center right now is Graham Glasgow.
I agree.
Right? I think that there are players who can play center for you in a pinch or, over extended periods of time, but I don't think you're going to get high level center play. And that's one of the things that you need for a running attack is you need a good center. Look around the NFL where there are elite centers, you'll find really good running games to go there. So when I see him, last year he played exclusively as a left tackle. As a tackle, there are moments when he looks a little bit out of control and he lunges where he'll kind of bend at the waist, and you don't play with power when you do those kind of things. So that's one of the first notes I have is that he will lunge in the ground game and get out of control, get off balance. And the balance stuff shows up all over his film. Like there are issues with his balance, right? Where can he hang outside further away from the ball? I don't know. And then getting into space. I mean, he's athletic. He can move and all that stuff. He does have short arms. So I think you almost negate him as a tackle out of the box. So he's going to go inside to play guard. And just, again, the idea that you're drafting a guard who has the versatility to play center at a high level for you, he is very intriguing from that standpoint. It's just, I don't know what he's going to give you as a guard before you get him playing center because of the balance stuff and some of the lunging out of control things. His footwork is very messy for a player who's been around a while and has played a lot of minutes, a lot of snaps, right? His footwork is, I would even say it's more than messy. It's problematic, and it leads to breakdowns kind of everywhere. His hands. Now this is as a tackle. So you'd have to retool the way he operates with his hands if he's playing guard. He does not punch. He tends to kind of grab from the outsides, and it leaves his chest open. And really good edge players are going to get into his. If I was advanced scouting him, I would tell whoever I had as an edge to run like long arm stuff against him or bull rush him all day long because, he does kind of grab or kind of clutch on from the outsides to the outside part of the defender's shoulder pads. So he's exposing his chest, and he is going to get walked. I mean, he just is
Especially
because
with
he
those
doesn't have
arms.
anchor, right?
Mhm.
But that's on the edge. Can you rework and change the way he works with his hands if he's playing guard? My guess is yes. But then you got to look
I
at
think
what
he
kind of
is too.
anchor does he have, how much power does he play with, and then there are positives. It's like, okay, at the Senior Bowl in one-on-ones, when players tried to bull rush him and he knew it was coming, he was totally fine. So I think see him grab. I mean, you can see it right there. Like he grabs from the outside.
Yeah. I
I
don't
think
think
he
you do
was on
that as
the
a
other
guard
side of the
either.
ball there.
Right there, it did okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Again,
I see exactly what you're talking about. Even
caliber
right
of
there.
competition kind of stuff. So there's not a lot of punch in his pass pro. See it?
Yep.
And it's not like that guy's winning anywhere, but
Like try doing that to Shamar Stewart, and you're going for a ride.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, again, caliber of competition, that guy's not really moving him. But if you just consider what what he's going to be facing with at the next level, especially if you're moving him side where players are significantly more heavy and they play with a lot more power, I think there are some things where you go, I don't know. And then it's, you leave it up to like if Brad Holmes decides that this is the guy at 28 that we're going to play him at left guard and transition him to center. I think you could spin that story and it makes a ton of sense. But I think you're taking a leap of faith with him that I'm a little bit this sounds so arrogant. I'm uncomfortable with that kind of leap of faith from Brad Holmes, please. Right? So if he makes that choice, I totally get it. It's just you are taking a bit of a leap. But you can see on and some of the one-on-one reps at the Senior Bowl where he does hold up against the bull rush. And there are balance issues, especially when people get into his chest. There's a desire to allow that to happen, and then the lunging sort of out of control stuff makes me worry about his ability to play guard if he even can. So then I would say he's going to be a center, and he'll probably play at a pretty high level as a center because he's smart and he's all that stuff. And as a center, you're more working double teams, and it's very obvious what's happening a lot of the time in front of you, where you just have to power up, right? So can he add some bulk? Yeah, he can. So I think his frame will allow him to do that. So I would be comfortable with that. I'd be much more comfortable with him in the middle of round 2 than at pick 28, though. So for whatever that's worth, I don't love him at 28, but I would understand the logic, because I do think that I think his best fit in the NFL is probably as a center.
Do you think you could take him and Nick Emmanwori at the same time, just like in a fight?
No. I don't think he's
I'm messing with you.
I know you are. I don't think he's soft by any, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's technical stuff where this is a guy
Technical
who's played
and
for a
level of
long
competition
time.
too. Can you make those kind of sloppy mistakes at the NFL level? Hell no.
No, but because he's played, I don't want to kill him because he's played a lower level of competition, and just make the assumption that he can't correct some of this stuff because he hasn't had to, right? At the NFL level, he's going to have to live. And can he do those things? I think he can. It's just I wouldn't expect it in year 1. Now, the idea behind selecting him is moving him inside to play center down the road. That's the intrigue. I don't know that you're doing that at pick 28.
My bad, I was muted. And then that's completely fair. Because I don't want to say we're on a negative trend, but like I definitely was higher on him until that conversation, until we watched the film. He talked about him put his hands outside. I'm gonna let you decide because we have Rattledge on the sheet. But is there somebody in the IOL department that you think would be there at 28 that you would want to take? Unless you want to talk about Rattledge, we can talk about that too.
We can talk about Rattled. I don't know. I mean, if for some reason a guy like Banks were to fall, which it's just sort of, I can't see that really happening.
Oh, you know what? I got a good one for you. The kid from Ohio State, Simmons. Could you see him falling to 28? Is that something you'd be?
No, because I think he's one of the guys. I think he's
Premier
outside
guy.
of Membo, who's a right tackle. I think he's the best pure left tackle in the class.
Okay.
Where I would, in some ways, I almost would want Jackson over Simmons, but that only takes into account Simmons's injury and, I don't think Simmons has played a lot as a left tackle, but his projection is as a left tackle. I don't think he'll be there. I really don't. I can't see him being there because he does have film as a left tackle functioning at a high level last year until he got hurt. We can do Rattledge. It's fine. Rattledge is a depth player that we wanted to talk about. I know Spenny wanted to talk about him. We did last night, but we'll do it again. He's a fun player to watch, but there's so much to correct and for him to figure out in his game. And I know he popped at the combine and he's very athletic. It's easy to see that when you watch him play, especially when you watch him his first couple steps to get out into space with some of the RPOs and some of the stuff that Georgia does on offense. It's impressive watching him get out into space. He can go, but when you watch just the way he sets up the foundation of his game, which is in his base and his stance and his footwork, there's a lot of ugliness to it or strangeness to it. His setup is bizarre and clunky. I don't really love the way he sets up because there are times when he'll throw, especially in pass pro, he'll throw both of his hands at the same time to try to stun like a rusher. But the problem is that his feet aren't real staggered, and his feet are level with each other when he does this. So he tends to miss a lot. And when he misses, that's so much momentum going forward because there's violence, there's heavy intentions and he's got huge hands. So if he misses, or if his aiming points are bad, or if he doesn't exactly target where his hands exactly where they should be,
he's out of the play.
He gets really off balance and out of control. Now, do you love the idea that this dude is just trying to rock defenders immediately? Yeah. You like the mentality, but the technical component around which he's doing it is bizarre, and it leads to him getting really out of control and also then lunging, getting way overextended because he's so aggressive with his hands and his punch. He's not moving. So when he punches, his feet are no longer moving. So just think about kind of gathering your feet together and throwing everything you've got in your two hands forward. And if you miss and you're not moving your feet, it's over. You're out of control. You've lost. I would say that polished defensive tackles who are good with their hands are going to eat him alive early in his career because of his inability to technically use his hands and their ability to use those things as a weapon against him. Like the whole two-hand swipe stuff, where they're going to see him throw that outside hand and just swipe that off, and boom, they're gone. Again, some out of control stuff around poor aiming points and sort of, sometimes as a puller, you've got to target certain parts of the guy you're pulling for, and he's so aggressive that he'll miss. And if your job is to take their inside shoulder, he's so aggressive sometimes that he just hits them like in the middle of their body, and that allows him to spin back into the gap in which he's pulling for. So there's some of that stuff where the technical stuff is not great. So and again, as aggressive as he is at times and as big as his hands are, you would think that once he latches on, that like he should really be in an advantageous position, but he doesn't always stay there. So I think there's some leverage. He's going to have leverage just because he's tall. So he doesn't always stay attached, and then you can see him get fooled by where Booker doesn't necessarily all the time. Ratledge does. He gets fooled by stunts a lot, and I think there's just a lot of over aggressive to his game. Maybe that's why Spencer loves him so much.
Yeah,
right.
And the mullet. When you get the mullet like that, it's pent up aggression.
That's why you get the haircut, right? It's like that dude's going to end up. I'm at the bar with him. He's going to get in a fight later, right?
Yeah.
Like you just know it's coming. And I think that's what Ratledge's game is about, is just playing bully ball and wanting to brawl. Like I'm cool, hitting you in the face mask with my hands. Most people are not wired that way. He is. He just doesn't seem to care, like, so from the standpoint of some of the stuff where you think, all right, he's different because of his aggression and he's a very good athlete. You could see as a developmental player, he would make a ton of sense, but as a developmental player, which means round 3, round 4 kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it with him.
Scott, you are the man, and I appreciate you so much. I love these opportunities to talk to you, whether it's about football, whether it's about hockey, whatever the hell it is, man. I appreciate our friendship. I'm glad I met you. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's really cool in this whole thing is the people you get to meet and then develop relationships with and all that stuff. And I feel the same way. I mean, it's good. It's really good. Thank you for saying that, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to doing this next week. If you guys want to do specific positions, I'm totally down. But Scott, I mean, do you want to get a little bit of mock drafts next week? You let me know. What do you want to do next week?
If that's what you want to do, let's do it.
All right, cool. Well, guys, make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please comment down below. Let us know what you want to see from us. Break it down for the Detroit Lions draft coverage. Do you want some mock drafts? I'm a fiend. Not gonna lie, I'm always down for that. Or do you want some specific positions and or names that are likely to be there at 28? I don't want to talk about Abdul Carter or none of that because it's not going to happen. Yeah. So just please comment down below. Let us know what you want. And thanks for joining us, man. We're out.